Yeah, and I can't always blame people for having that mindset because a lot of the marketing is perpetuating that kind of mentality.
Sure.
So sometimes you meet somebody new and they've been led to believe that it's possible to make unrealistic amounts of change in very quick amounts of time. But sometimes, I'll spend an hour or two with someone like that and kind of give them food for thought and make them reassess their expectations. And that same person can then become a great client. So I never
Right.
would want to like turn someone away just
Right.
because they come in with a misconception. But if after talking to somebody for a while, I mean, you can get a vibe pretty quick on whether or not you're going to be a good match for them. And it's not so much a thing of like me being like, oh, I'm too good to train you because I don't like your attitude, but more just like I'm not the right fit for you. And there might be a coach out there that is going to be able to get through to them in a way that I can't. But
Right.
sometimes I'm lucky at this point in my career because I tend to attract like-minded people already. So
Sure.
people, if they're seeking me out, they usually already know what I'm about and they know what I want to do. So when they come to me, it makes it, very easy for me because they already know the deal.
Yeah, they're excited to work with you rather than rather than coming to you saying, "I want this and give it to me,"
But
right?
uh, but yeah, I spent a lot of years working in the mainstream Globo gym kind of setting,
Yeah.
and you have a lot of very unrealistic client expectations in those situations, and sometimes, like I said, you're able to make people reassess things and make them enjoy the process, and other times they say, you know what, I want to work with a trainer who's gonna, if not, feed that unrealistic expectation, at least not be so blunt as I can be about dismissing it.
Right. That's funny. I'm sure you can be blunt about it. So what about complete beginner? Let's say like I walk in your door, I want to learn how to do, handstand push-ups and muscle ups and stuff someday, but I can't do a single push-up. I can barely hold down a squat. Where would you start me out at?
Yeah, well, even within the world of beginners, the spectrum is pretty big. There's some beginners who you can start them right in, and they can do a push-up and they can do a decent body weight squat.
Right.
Like a younger guy who hasn't had a lot of years of messing himself up or something like that. And then other times, right, you get an older person who's been sedentary for a very long time. And just to get them to do something as basic as a squat can take a lot of work and take a lot of coaching. So, the beginning is different for everybody. I can't really give you like one, this is my beginner template. And I
Right,
think that's
right.
part of what makes me unique as a coach is I hate to be too specific with my guidelines when they're hypotheticals. When
Sure.
I work with a real person, I can assess them and figure out what I'm going to do with them. But you can't just give out cookie cutters. This is my beginner workout. This is my this person workout. But you sometimes have to do that, in order to attract, people to your brand or what you're doing. So there's always when you're a fitness professional, I feel like this delicate balance between keeping integrity and knowing that you can feel good about the things you're preaching, but
Right.
also wanting to give people what they want and wanting to live up to their expectations, which are sometimes unrealistic.
Yeah, sure. So what about your programs? Like where do your programs start people at if you were to look at like, your books or your DVDs and stuff like that?
Well, I just like the basic movement patterns that I mentioned a minute ago. I just want to get
Sure.
people able to do a push up, able to do a body weight squat, able to do a pull up. Like those are three of the most fundamental movement patterns that I want to train people to do. And depending on where they're starting at, like a beginner, like I said, they might just start hanging from the bar. They might start with a flexed hang position. In the push up, they might start against the wall. They might start on their knees. They might start with a full push up. So it's just the wherever they're at, that's where we start.
Yeah. Well, tell me about like the best case scenario. What kind of progress do you see when people follow these progressions? So say somebody comes into you and they're almost to their first pull up, but not quite yet. How long would it take you to get them to something more complex like a muscle up or something like
Well, the first thing that I do with a client like that is try to get them out of that mindset of how long it's going to take me to get to this goal.
that?
So, having said that, I mean, I've had people that I've coached who got their first muscle up on the first session that we did. It's
Right.
it's always someone who already had a pretty good foundation,
Sure.
and then I've had other people who I've trained for 6 or 7 years who still aren't ready to try and muscle up. So it's such an individualized thing. But generally, if you can't do a pull up yet, it's going to be a long, long, long time before we're having the muscle up conversation.
You gotta
So
gotta get
I'm all
mastered on
about
there.
focus on the little steps along the way.
Sure.
What if you can do 10 pull-ups, then we can start talking about, how long it's going to take to get a muscle up. But for someone who's can't even do that first pull-up yet, it's like I'm not even going to have that conversation, because the answer could be anywhere from a few months to a few years to never. And something that I always drive home in my books and in my blog, and when I meet people in person, is like, you have to do the work, and it's all this very direct relationship between cause and effect. The more work you put in, the more results you get. And it's a really simple equation, but it never ceases to amaze me how hard it is for certain people to accept that there isn't a quick fix a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, you've accomplished some pretty amazing stuff over the years, Al. How long have you been doing this yourself?
How long have I been actually just working out myself?
More specifically, focusing on the body weight movement progressions.
Well, I got started on pull-ups and push-ups when I was 13, and I'm 34 now. So I've been doing those for a long time.
Been a little while.
Some of the more advanced stuff I didn't find out about until later on. I kind of, in a way, I feel like I'm lucky, because when I first got into strength training, I didn't even know what a muscle up was. I'd never heard of the human flag. A lot of these things that people get this far off, oh, I want to learn to do that move, and it winds up really being detrimental that they're so focused on a move that's so far away from their current potential, that I didn't ever have that concern. So I just wanted to do lots of pull-ups and push-ups. As a teenager, I found weight training, and I got into bench pressing and squatting and deadlifting and a lot of that stuff. And through my early 20s, for me, I never even realized that body weight training and weight training wouldn't necessarily be combined in the same program. It just kind of was a given to me. Like, yeah, I can do my bench press and then do my push-ups and then do my pull-ups and then do my squats and deadlifts on another day. So this whole idea that, like, you have to kind of pick one or the other, I don't know where that got started. If that was, a branding competitive thing, but that's never been something I've preached myself. Like I said, I personally enjoy the body weight stuff more now, and so that's my bag now. But I mean, it's all good, and you can mix and match and combine things any way you want. I don't even remember what your question was now. I just started.
Yeah, that's all right. I think it comes back to the marketing again. So many people are like, when body weight became really popular, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago or so, when people started selling lots of products on it and saying body weight training is the new greatest thing. Look at gymnast bodies. Don't look at weightlifters' bodies. You don't want to look bulky. You want to look lean. And, that got really popular back in the day. I think that really propagated a lot of the fighting between weightlifting and body weight training.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, us versus them, right? Yeah. Anyways, so what is Al's goal? So I know you're able to do a lot of these moves that people already consider top shelf, like front levers and back levers and human flags and one-arm chins and muscle-ups and stuff. What's your goal, Al? Are you going to try to go further? Are you going to try to take it to the limit, or just maintain where you're at?
Well, I mean, you always want to continue to refine your skill set.
Sure.
And that's something that I always try to remind people of, is even though I can do, some pretty high-level moves, it doesn't mean that I don't do pull-ups and push-ups and other things, more basic things in my workout still, because those are the foundation. So even if I can manage a one-arm pull-up or a human flag on a good day, I want to get better at those skills. And of course, you want to. I'm always seeing new moves and new things. Like, the possibilities are really limitless in bodyweight training. So all the time I see somebody do something that I can't do yet, and think, oh man, I would love to work on that skill. But like I said, I'm a very process-oriented person, and maybe it's partially easier to have that mindset when you've already accomplished a lot of goals. But I got to a point, because this is what happens when you set a goal and you achieve it. You come up with another goal immediately, right?
Yeah, and you go for
the next one. Such a short-lived, fleeting sort of feeling of like, oh great, I did this, I feel great. It's like, okay, well now what? I gotta work towards something else. So when I had that experience time and time again of setting a goal, achieving a goal, and okay, on to the next goal, I started to realize that the chasing of the goals was kind of an ultimately unfulfilling process.
Right.
And it led me to re-examine, well, what am I doing this for? And this was around the time when I started to get more and more into bodyweight training, is because, a lot of my goals in my early 20s were about wanting to add more size to my frame or add more plates onto the bar that I was lifting. And eventually it was like I said, it stopped being as much about enjoying it. And that's when I started to reassess things, and that's when my philosophy started to change also. And something that I think is unique to my literature, because certainly, like you said, there's a lot of books about bodyweight training, and I'm not the first person to write about pull-ups and push-ups.
Right.
Well, I think what makes my stuff unique is the attitude I take toward it and the non-competitive kind of have fun with it, enjoy the process, don't get hung up on your goals. I think that resonated with a big part of the fitness community that had kind of been previously not really been tapped into.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like so many people live into a paradigm of like specific sets and reps and progressions and things like that don't allow them to experience the joy of movement. And then if they just kind of get their mind outside of that box and just go play and have fun, it can be a blast. Like I first started doing this with a good friend of mine. I think you know Logan Christopher, right?
Sure, yeah, Logan's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, me and Logan started training at the park together like a year and a half ago, just for fun. We'd go out there and just start playing, and that really made me realize, I've had a lot of injuries in my young life, and I'm like, I don't need to back squat
Mhm.
triple body weight, right?
Yeah.
As long as I can just move and have fun and play and challenge myself, it's really what it's more all about. So that being said, it sounds like what you do in your own training is really more play based. Is that right?